So what you've been seeing me work on, this guy right here, just a piece of 4-inch wide, 1-inch thick hot roll plate that I cut, and we've been milling 2-degree angles on the side to actually give it draft, because the purpose of this piece right here is that I'm trying to make a pattern similar to this guy right here, this machinist jack. This has always been my favorite machinist jack out of all the ones that I use, made by Armstrong, which is no longer made. They stopped making these years ago. Now, one of the problems with using this particular machinist jack in conjunction with your normal 6-inch milling vices, like my Clarke 6-inch milling vise, is that the height here is usually too tall to be able to use unless you have your part elevated in the base of the vise there. So if you've got a flat piece, I believe the base is 2 7/8 to the bottom or the top of the bed there. So what I am wanting to do is make another one. And I'm going to make a pattern. Yes, I'm making it out of steel. Normally patterns are made out of wood or plastic or just something lightweight, but I don't think I have any good wood around here to do that with. I've got plenty of steel, so I'm going to be using this. But if this works out to be the correct size and actually works out to be a good pattern, then we could actually recast this in aluminum to make an actual aluminum pattern out of instead of the steel. Okay, I'm going to be going to Clarke's pretty soon, and we're having a little get together there to do some casting like we did last year. And this is what I wanted to try to duplicate, was this jack right here. So the base is going to be milled like this right here. I want to have this face on it for the flange nuts to pull down on. But whenever they made it, they made this really wide. They made this for 3/4 hardware to hold that down. So I'm probably going to mill my slot 5/8, because I do use 5/8 hold down hardware on my mill. So you can use either 1/2 inch or 5/8. So I want this raised area here. So the next step that I'm going to do is actually go to the rotary table and use that to mill this shape into the top of it. So it'll be recessed down, but have that U-shape standoff here that we can later machine. And then I'll find a piece of stock and just machine this cone looking shape right here that we'll probably just bolt on to the back right here. Okay, we'll just drill through. We'll have that piece drilled and tapped and just bolt it on there. And hopefully this will make a nice pattern. So it'll be solid. There'll be no slot. There'll be no drilled and tapped hole there for the screw. That I'll machine later on. All right. So that's what I'm working on. I wasn't sure how this was going to go. Started getting a little video to share. So I'll go ahead and bring you along for the ride. And hopefully we're going to have a pattern that we can successfully use to make our own fun machinist jack. And then later on, whenever I start machining the actual casting, I'm going to machine this and the spindle, the V-block and everything, with hopes that the height will actually work with the Curt 6-inch vise. So this won't be sticking up as high as it is right now. I want the V, when it's all the way down in there, to be able to reach down and be able to set something like a shafting piece of shaft through that vise, and this be able to support it on the outer end. All right. We're working on quite our elaborate setup here. We've got the rotary table down here with the chuck, and then of course my fixture plate on top. And we're gonna get this block is centered up on a punch mark there. Everything is centered up with the spindle, by the way. We're right directly in the middle. We've got everything zeroed out. So I have this block kind of pivoting on that pointer right there. Now I'll go ahead and just use a machinist square to square up the milled side of the block to get it parallel, just like that. That should be pretty good. We'll go ahead and use this one toe clamp to get it pulled down tight. I need to get some other clamps on here to support it so we can do our milling. All right, I've decided to use my Mighty Bite system here to hold this. We've got some shims in there to get it to tighten up where we need to. And I'm going to shim this last one up as well. Centered there. These are ground on a centric there, so as you tighten them up, it pushes that brass hex over into it. All right, so we've got a total of 6 on here, 2 on each side, and then 1's on the end. And that should provide some good holding power for the milling that we're going to do. Plus the sides have that little bit of taper, so it shouldn't be able to lift out of there. All right, you might have seen this slide down whenever we were cutting right there. This is the quill DRO, and actually this thing is messed up and it's loose and it slid down during that cut. So I need to adjust this and tighten it up before we keep going with it. All right, we're gonna run down this other side and make this cut here as well. Chips are gonna sling at me this time, so I'm just gonna engage it and back up. that's looking pretty good. So what's going to end up happening, we're going to go deeper with this here, and this is starting to cut out the raised section around the slot. But what we're going to do at the end, once all this is milled down, I'm going to put a 3/8 ball mill in there and put a radius around this right here. So we're out a little further than what we need to be, because I'm making up room for the radius to be able to cut in there. All right, let's see if we can go for our radius now. I'm going to use our turntable. We got it set to 0, so we'll go 180 degrees. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to back off. I'm going to back off just a little bit, about 20 thousandths, just like that. And we'll come back and clean it up. And then that'll be 180 right there. I'll just come on in. We've got this depth milled to where I want it, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up here so we've got a nice smooth surface on the top. I'm leaving myself enough material here so that whenever this is going to be cast as cast iron, there's going to be enough material to clean up the top here and the bottom, have a nice machine face there on both sides, and still end up there near a nominal size is what I'm shooting for. I think 5 thousandths is fine. That'll work right there. My plan was to give myself about 25 thousandths to mill off this face after the casting is done. 25 thou off this face and 25 off the bottom. It's nothing critical though, because it's just a casting for a jack. We're just trying to shoot towards some kind of target temp. So I know we're going to have a little bit of shrinkage whenever they do the casting plus the machining. So I'm hoping that puts me about where I want to be. We're going to go ahead and give this a try with our radius, our ball mill. I mean, this is a 3/8 diameter ball mill, so I'm putting a 3/16 radius in this right there. I'm not taking the whole cut at once. We're going to take about half of it or so. I still have room to come in and clean it up, but I want to make sure everything's going to work out good. We're going to be running the cool mist here, the Noga Cool. Come into my 0, and then we'll use the rotary table to go around it. All right, there's our 0. Alright, well I got most of it anyway right there, so we still got to come in there and finish it out with one more cut. Well, we got all the milling finished here, with the exception of the hole. I'm going to drill through this later on, but this worked out good. I really like the way the radius looks right here, and this is I think this is going to make it look really nice. Once we have an actual casting that's going to be cast iron, we'll be able to set this thing up and machine this area right here. You know, we'll mill a slot in it and then mill this flat right there. It'll give it a really nice contrast between a machined face that's raised, you know, against this area right here. And I'm working on an idea to actually add some lettering along here that's got my name in there. So whenever we cast it, we'll actually have, you know, sort of a name or a logo in there as well. So all of this is finally finished up. So the last piece that we need to do, I need to machine a little round cone shaped piece that's going to go right here. And of course, we'll go to the lathe and do that next. I thought some of you guys might like seeing how these Mighty Bites work. You have a limited range of motion because of the you know, the bolt being on an eccentric right there. So I had to shim all the sides to be able to get it to push up. It was almost where I needed it to be. Let's go around and loosen all of them like this. Since I already loosened those, all the other ones are loose now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull our workpiece out. Now we can just go ahead and get to all of our screws and remove them. We'll pull one out so you can see it. There's the screw right there. Head's ground on an eccentric. Just a piece of hex there that it goes in. So All right, so we got the two main pieces done. This side I drilled and tapped 1/4 20, and then this side we drilled, put a counter bore in there for this button head bolt. This was the closest bolt that I had to do what I wanted, besides using a hex bolt, but I got plenty of these guys right here, so I just used that. So it'll just simply bolt together like this. See if I can get it lined up. There we go. Okay, there we go. So that is the basic pattern that will go down into the sand like so. All right. You know, one of the feature that I remembered I was going to do this, and actually I forgot until just now. I need to drill and tap a couple more holes so that we can put a couple of bolts in this thing, so that whenever we're trying to pull it out of the sand, we'll have something, we can screw a couple of bolts in there and be able to lift this out of the sand. So I'll do that off camera. All right, and then the last detail of this that we're gonna do is, if you'll look at the original, by the way, mine is a little bit wider and it's a little bit longer as well. I figured length isn't really gonna matter. That way it give you a little more range if you're lined up on a stud and you're trying to arc this around to reach something, you know, the radius, bottom radius of a shaft or whatever, you know, you can do that. But if you'll look, we've got some radius around these top edges right here. So I need to do that. And then also the four corners. And I'm probably gonna go ahead and just use the belt sander on that. We will kick the table up at 2 degrees or try to match this right here as well we can. And then just go ahead and blend those radiuses to match something like that. It doesn't have to be exact, but we'll knock those corners off and make it look a little less square and a little more roundy on the corners there. Once we do that, I think this guy will be ready for the sand. We got the table of the sander matching the side right there. Just come in and touch it until it was cutting pretty even all the way across there. We've also got a radius gauge that we'll use. This matches the Armstrong base. So we'll put about a 3/8 radius there in the corners. All right, guys, this is what I believe is going to be a completed pattern for the machinist jack here. I did some extra filing on it to get rid of all the sharp edges, trying to blend all these corners together. Real nice. Everything's got a nice soft edge to it now. Of course, we got that bolted on. I went ahead and added the 2 extra tap holes. I got a couple bolts here that I'll take with it so that we can screw these guys in there whenever we're getting ready to make the mold, the sand mold. So this will be upside down in there like that, and be able to use this as lift points to lift this up out of the sand mold. That's the theory anyway. So it is quite heavy because it's made out of steel, and my intentions, and I had talked to Clarke about this, if this ends up being where I want to make some more of these, he can also use this guy right here to just pour an aluminum pattern, and then use the aluminum pattern or multiple aluminum patterns to go from there. And you know, this will just end up being what I would consider the master pattern that we'll start with, and then go from there. So of course, once we get this piece cast in some cast iron, then I will set this up in the mill and mill a slot right through here to match this guy. Well, it's going to be a different slot. This guy right here was milled really wide, so I want a slot 5/8, so you can use either 1/2 inch or 5/8 hardware. And of course, we'll have to drill and tap for the center spindle there. This right here, these are still to be determined on how exactly I'm going to machine these. It'll be very similar to this, but you know, we may change some sizing up on that as well. May not make this as tall. Again, I want to make this so that our total height right there, whenever we're trying to catch the bottom of a round, will be we can at least drop down to 2 7/8 on our height there, 2 7/8. So we're pretty close right there where we're at, and it could be where I end up having to machine a little bit of this area off as well, but that's okay because we'll still have plenty of material right there for adjustment. So that's it for this. We'll be over in Mississippi next, and going to get with Clarke, and hopefully we'll get us at least one cool casting done, you know, poured in cast iron using this guy right here. So probably see you over in Mississippi whenever we get to this guy next.